Hey guys, one of my viewers recently asked if I would do a video talking about taking rest days on the Camino de Santiago. I thought that was a fantastic idea. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And I just want to say I really love when you guys suggest ideas for videos because I try to think about what, I would have wanted to know before I started the Camino, but sometimes I can't think of all the ideas. So I really appreciate it when you guys send me your questions. It helps me know what's important to you, and that way I can deliver better content on this site. So today, I'm going to talk about taking rest days. As always, this will be a little bit more specific to the Camino Frances, which is the only Camino I've had the privilege to do so far. I would think probably the same principles apply to all Caminos, but I won't be able to speak kind of locationally specific for the other routes. So my Camino lasted 35 days in total, from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. It's about 500 miles, as I'm sure you know, or 800 kilometers. I planned for it to take 35 days with 3 rest days. It took 35 days with 3 rest days. That was really kind of the time that I had to do it, and I am going to post another video about how long you should take to do the Camino, but today I just want to specifically focus on rest days. So ideally, if I were going to do my exact same Camino again, not change any of my stops, I think I took 3 rest days. I would have preferred 5. So the 3 rest days I took were: on day 5, I took a rest day in Pamplona. On day 10, I took a rest day in Logroño. And on day 25, I took a rest day in Astorga. And actually, that was probably my original plan, those rest days. The first 2 definitely, I had already booked hostels in Pamplona and Logroño. Well, I guess hotels, actually, hostel hotels. So private room, but, fairly cheap accommodation. I think maybe the rooms were 30 or 40 euros per night with a private bathroom. And it was a little bit strategic in terms of a cultural perspective. I've spent a lot of time in Spain, but I had never seen either Pamplona or Logroño, so I really wanted to spend more time in those bigger cities and get a chance to explore them a little bit. And I was also nervous about how my body would be adjusting at that point, so I figured, you know what, I'd rather front load 2 rest days as I'm still getting used to this physical toll, and then hopefully in the second half of the Camino I'll be stronger and need 1 or maybe 0 rest days. So I really appreciated having those 2 rest days. I thought it was a lot of fun. Well, it was great to be able to sleep in, but it was a lot of fun to spend time, in the cities and actually experience some of the local culture. So I think where I started to struggle was so in Logroño was day 10 was my second rest day. And then it was 15 more days until my third and final rest day. And it was I'm looking down at my sheet because I'm counting the days. I think it was about 5 or 6 days after Logroño. It was after leaving Burgos that I got my first blister, which ended up being the most horrible blister of my Camino. And when I look back, I think, you know what? I went 2 weeks with 0 blisters. And I really have to think that was in part because of those rest days I took. When you take a rest day, you give your feet, any hot spots are developing, you give them a chance to heal. And I saw this principle really come into play when I finally took that rest day in Astorga. I had been suffering with a couple of bad blisters for probably close to a little over a week. And finally, I took that rest day in Astorga, and by probably midway through the next day, my blisters had turned completely hard and were no longer painful at all. So that's all the time I needed to heal. Had I taken that time, when I first had the problem, I think they would have healed and I wouldn't have had to deal with the painful condition that I smiled my way through for about a week on the Camino. So what I would recommend, if I could do it again, I would have taken rest days also in Burgos and potentially León. Now, that leaves the problem of a rest day after Astorga because you still have about 10 days left to finish. So I did not stay in Sarria. I wanted to avoid that. That's where, a lot of pilgrims start their Camino journey. and I wasn't really looking for that vibe. But I will say, I think it'd be a good place to spend 2 nights just because of the timing from the end of the Camino. I think that gives you like 6 days until the end, so that would be a good place. Otherwise, I loved Villafranca del Bierzo right before you cross into Galicia or Osebrero. They're all great places. So yeah, I would say for the Camino Frances, if you can take about 5 rest days, even if you don't feel like your body needs it, I think your feet will really thank you. That's my philosophy going forward anyway. Now, a couple pieces of advice for taking rest days. One, if you can, you're going to want to stay at a hotel or a hostel or just not a pilgrim's albergue, because even if they let you spend 2 nights at the albergue, oftentimes they'll make you leave the premises so they can clean and then come and check back in. And for some, if you're trying to rest and you don't want to have your stuff with you, that kind of defeats the purpose. So on those days, I would say to spend a little bit more money and stay somewhere private. And also that way, if you have some laundry you haven't been able to do, you'll be able to catch up and kind of have just some space and time to yourself. Obviously, you can't always pick when you're going to take a rest day. If you get very sick, then you can't control it. And I would still say, though, if you can find a private room, do so. Second, take the rest day. Don't be worried about losing pace with people who've come to be your Camino family. That might be sort of a controversial statement because maybe you want to stay, they are your family and you want to walk the whole Camino with them. And then in that case, I'm not really sure what to say, but at the end of the day, it's your Camino. And I just know that there were people I was sad to kind of get separated from that I saw maybe a week later, 2 weeks later in Santiago, because then they took a rest day later, or they slowed down their pace and you picked up your pace. I know that's what I did for the last, in Galicia, I really lengthened my days. I kind of was just really loving walking at that point. But yeah, don't be worried about losing people, because that's, when you're opening up yourself to have some time alone or to find new people. So take those rest days when you think you need them. And third, this may seem intuitive, but rest on your rest days. Go see a museum if you're dying to see a museum, or in Astorga, go to the chocolate museum. I highly recommend the chocolate museum, especially near closing time. They just let us have as much chocolate as we wanted. But rest, give yourself some extra time to sleep in, maybe get a massage, go to a spa, or just, really take care of your feet in a way that maybe you haven't had time to do the rest of the Camino. But yeah, on those rest days, take care of yourself and give your body the rest it needs. Because the rest of the Camino, you want to feel good as you're finishing. You want to walk into Santiago feeling strong and as blister-free as you can be. And I really, really think rest days play a huge part in that. So let me know if you guys have any questions, or let me know where else you would recommend taking a stop on the Camino de Santiago Frances. And as always, buen camino.